Good morning, Commissioner. I start by saying I'm very sorry that your officers have had all of those attacks. It's absolutely disgraceful, and I'm sure the whole committee agrees with that. Dreadful. Can I ask you, please, about policing of demonstrations and large gatherings, and in fact smaller gatherings? Some of the protests, such as the one in Trafalgar Square, seems to have been allowed to go ahead, and they were clearly not social distancing in any way. But or the police managed to stop the one in Hyde Park where they were demonstrating. Can you explain to me why one goes ahead and the others didn't, when we're just not getting any social distancing in some of these demonstrations at all?
Thank you. Well, policing protests, as you know, is a very, very challenging and sometimes delicate balance. Clearly, over the period that we've had the COVID restrictions, a gathering, we've had three separate, well, no, we're on our fourth now, a separate set of regulations, restrictions, if you like. But at each point, gatherings of numbers of people, now six, more than six, is against the restrictions. And you will have seen that in the protest at, which you referred to at Trafalgar Square, which was a large number of people, thousands of people, probably ended up with about 3,000 people, and moved towards the US Embassy and then went elsewhere. Actually, we did do what we do, which is engage, talk to people, advise them, and eventually move to, if they won't comply with the restrictions, move to some enforcement notices or indeed in some instances arrests. And you'll have seen even in that Trafalgar Square protest, that did happen. But if you put yourself in the shoes of a public order commander dealing with a protest which has come almost from nowhere, which has no organizer, nobody you can speak to, nobody will engage with you, nobody will plan with you or anything at all, as we've had with those, then you have to make some judgments at the time, in the moment, about what is the best thing to do. And judgments have been made that actually people are out in such numbers, feeling so strongly and refusing to disperse when asked, that the officers have formed the view that if they were to try at that stage, with those sorts of numbers, to enforce en masse, we would probably have ended up with very serious disorder and a bad situation, a difficult situation, challenging situation for everybody, turning into a violent situation. So these are the sorts of risks that public order commanders have.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Hang on, I haven't finished.
Sometimes in conflict.
Okay, sorry, go on, Susan. Very quickly, Susan, do you want to come in and then, yeah.
Okay.
It's all right. Sorry, Commissioner, you froze for a bit there. Does the same apply to that rave that involved hundreds and hundreds of people that was allowed to go on? The police arrived there, I think, at 9, and the rave went on till about 1:30 in the morning. That was advertised a lot on the media, and people were wondering what was going on there.
So I wonder if we've had a number. Actually, London has been remarkably free of what we call unlicensed music events until the last few days, whereas some other cities in the country have had a number of those. We have had very, very few, and we have been really good at getting intelligence before they happen and being able to close them down before they get big, such as they have been. We had one at the weekend where it was very large before we even knew about it, and we worked really closely with the people in the local community and event to stop any more arriving, and when it was safe to do so, to disperse those people in an effective manner. And we will always try to stop an unlicensed music event before it starts, and we will always then, if somebody gets ahead of us, we will have to take the safety of the local community and everybody involved into account as to how we then police it. We'll try and stop other people arriving, we'll try and disperse it and close it down as quickly as possible. That's what I think they did on that occasion, and that's what we would do in the future. But I think what you're also going to, perhaps there, Council, is that, again, in some of these events that they've seen in other cities around the country, and we've seen over the weekend with that one, people not socially distanced at all, people not really recognizing the risks of being in a confined space. And so what I would say to any member of the public who is finding themselves in a crowd or a group, for whatever reason, is you must, obviously think about your safety and the safety of others in the context of social distancing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask you, what would you say, because there are some communities that are in more danger than others of this COVID wretched virus. What would you say to people from communities that are really in danger, that are going to these various events? What message would you send them?
So the first thing I would say to all communities in London is that I really understand, as the Commissioner has said as well, the strength and the depth of the feeling of hurt because of the death of George Floyd. And that is incredibly important, that we stand in solidarity with those that feel so strongly because of what has happened in America and the continuing events in America. In terms of the protests, we've been really clear. People have the right and understand their fury and indignation of the events that's happened. And they have the right to protest, and there's a really difficult balance. I think the Commissioner's talked about the individual judgments of officers who have got to make decisions on the day, in the minute, and in fast time. What I would say to people that I understand your fury, I understand your anger, as does the Mayor, but please be safe. Don't forget, COVID is still out there. It is still we are still in a pandemic. Be safe and keep to the regulations and make sure that you social distance.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Sharon.
you. Okay, if I can